जी,
Hello.
welcome, Sumitra ji.
Good morning, everybody. This is a very chilling good morning from New Delhi. I'm in New Delhi, India, and it's a pleasure being on this show. I'm so privileged that I have with me Mr. Vikas Tomar, who's heading BTX City. With me, my mentor Guruji Bhu, who is a thinker. You know, he himself is a think tank. I think a condensed think tank personified. And with me, we have Professor Deepak Chandra Goyalji from India. And it's a pleasure to have with us Mr. Parker, who's an aspiring filmmaker and a graphic artist. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this very special show today on the last day of the 5th Global Nature Film Festival. I'll take a minute or two to introduce our guest speaker today on this panel, Mr. Parker. He is an aspiring filmmaker and a graphic artist since youth, with talent in animation, film and video editing, graphic arts and screenwriting. Parker writes many screenplays for himself and others. He has got a recognition on IMDb as the producer of a short film which is titled Folklore that has played in theaters for film festivals in development. Parker is also with his first featuring film project on his own writing, which is somewhere in between a horror, a thriller, fantasy, which is titled Rubber Baby. So before I take up this session forward, I would like to tell you that this session we will talk about what have been the struggles and how an independent aspiring young talented person in Canada comes up as a successful independent filmmaker. So here, before I begin with this session, I have Michael Ondaatje on my mind with his very famous book, The English Patient, which also received many awards. And finally, there was a film adaptation of this particular novel, The English Patient. And then there is another novel, In the Skin of a Lion, written by the Canadian author Michael Ondaatje. That used to be my topic of research when I started doing my PhD, as I was telling you backstage. So when that particular novel was put up in the form of a film, I thought of many different things. One, that is the script different from the screen? How can the same novel, fantasized in theory, be played very real on the canvas? So there are many things that go together. So I first of all welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Parker. Welcome Guruji, welcome Professor Deepak Chandra Goyal, and welcome Vikas Tomarji. Vikas, I would like you to initiate the session for today, and eventually I'll request Mr. Parker to take it up. Mr. Vikas.
very good morning, India, and very good evening to Canada. I welcome Parker Briscoe, who is a good friend of mine. As I told you, came in my first time when we did the first movie in Canada, and we floated the company Pixel Studio. I was fortunate enough to have a couple of people from Parker, and the second one was also very good filmmaker who has won several awards, and he also had some of the Indian connects. I invited all the Parker earlier also that if we can come down to India and we can plan on some folklore kind of movies in India, and he's open for that. But pandemic has made all of us stop on that, and I really appreciate my hats off to Parker when he tried his brave steps to independent filmmaker in Canada immediately after his graduation. Although he has done a lot of other technical things also, which have been really amazing stories of him, which we might not have time today. But he has done massive compression technology for some high-end, some of the world's biggest. He made a lot of good money also one time. He lost some money in that. So he has gone through that roller coaster ride. But I seen his passion of writing his movies and making it independently with his own thoughts is really appreciable. So today we'll just share his thoughts about what he has done, and also his wishes for the independent filmmakers in India, and for the New Year wishes for the community here. So let's welcome Parker and
yes, thank you, Vikas. Thank you, Vikas, for the introductory remarks. Mr. Parker, welcome to this show. This is a very special show, and you are a guest speaker for the day. I will ask Professor Deepak Chandra Goyal also to pitch in sometimes later. So, Parker, I would like to know more about you. The audience would like to know more about you, like Vikas has already talked about you. But I would like to know more about you. Where are you based at? And what what have you been doing? Like, what has been your education? And later on, I'll ask you about your journey and your foray into filmmaking. Yes, over to you, Mr. Parker.
Hello, and
Yeah.
I guess good morning there. It's evening here where I'm at right now. So I was just sitting back, relaxing, going, feet up, and all of a sudden, ding, Vika's called, and I was like, oh, okay. Get the earbuds on, get the phone going. So yeah, so where am I right now? I am in location-wise, I'm situated in Saskatchewan, Canada at the moment. I'm on the border of Saskatchewan and Alberta, if anyone knows anything about Canada. Right now it's winter time, so there's a lot of snow out and it's a little chilly outside, but we live with that over here, so that's how that goes. So yeah, I've been around. If you just want to know a little bit more of my background, I guess I've done some schooling. I went to a university for a little while to learn film video. I've been doing this for ever since I was a kid. I graduated high school in 1987, and I pretty much went right into film stuff after that, going to university. Before then, I even just made my own stuff. I'm heavy into animation. First of all, I wanted to be a cartoonist, draw pictures on panels and stories in cartoon style comic books and things like that. But the film bug got to me, and I watched movies that really changed my life. And being in northern Canada, you don't really have too much, especially back then. This is like the 1980s, right? There were no computers. There were video cameras, but not really. There was, it was where I was at. There wasn't really any support for anybody who had the film bug, but I had it, and I wanted to make movies, like Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark and stuff like that. But I found that I've also found the thing is that when you want to do that kind of stuff, you have the ideas in your head, and you're like going, "Oh, you know, write the stories down," and they're usually pretty crappy stories, but still they're kind of fun. You want to make them, and then you realize, "Oh yeah, I don't have anybody to help me here. I need money, and equipment, and all that kind of stuff." So I always sort of went. The one thing that as a creative person, if you're really creative and know how to at least draw and understand things with animation, no one can stop you from animating. So I turned a lot towards animation. I could make little clay characters and videotape them with I did eventually get a video camera, several of them. They kept breaking on me, but I get another one. But I would make little animations with clay people and stuff like that, write little stories and have little things like that. Eventually evolved into me going into university and school. And I don't know, it didn't really, I didn't really learn too much in school. It was, I mean, you learn certain amounts, but if you really want to understand film, you got to have it in you. It's not to discourage anyone not to go to school or university or anything like that concerning that kind of thing. Some people feel that they have to, and you can network with people in the school, and you can bounce ideas off, and you can but it's, as an independent, I myself just decided to go the independent route because I really want to make movies. So there's a lot of aspects to trying to break into the doors of getting people to take you seriously, and really to make your first film or whatever is sort of what you have to do. And once they teach certain things in school, but one thing they don't really teach, how you can learn editing, and you can learn your aspects of cinematography and whatever, but a lot of stuff that they don't really teach is the back end of it, like the important side of it, which is the business side. There's markets out there. There's how do you promote, and how do you what is it that people want to see, and what is how do you get in the door to appeal to powers that be to take you seriously, and how to actually make a film that could, bring in profit, or whatever. So I sort of just the route of just hitting the street and just money myself, and just write stories and try to see if I could get a response from people. And I've done some things. I shot like some short films and stuff like that. Eventually, later on, like short films that just own personal stuff. I never entered them into any contests. It was really more of an experiment for me, and for me to try and get financing. I was part of some business groups that I had access to people that could possibly give me money or loan money or put me on a route that would get me deeper into the finance, trying to get my film ideas made. But I don't know, you meet a lot of weird people when you're involved in that kind of thing. So so eventually, once again, it's like, well, I think maybe I might have to turn back into animation again. And so I went to this is a bit later on. This is when I was about in my mid 30s, and this was in 2000. I went to Vancouver Film School, and that's where I met Vikas, and we developed good relationship there. And that was a good school. It had its issues, but that type of schooling was good because it really grounded me in a good. It was a good rush course in the process of how to make a film, and it also introduced me into how to finally figure out how to properly put my animation energies into computer animation, into CG. Before then, I was, so I'm looking at, my plasticine characters with my stop motion, but then I look like, wow, okay, I can transfer this to, my laptop computer screen with the right program. And this is how you do it. And then it's just like, and I latched onto it quite quickly. I knew I know all aspects of animation. It was quite fun getting to 3D animation. So on a technical side, for that kind of schooling, I found it very valuable. But once again, school ends and then you're back out into the street again, trying to, get a job or whatever. I was never really successful in trying to find a job. I'm really not sort of that kind of, with animation, it was like, when you were out the door at Vancouver Film School, it was basically if you could get hired on with a production company, that would be cool, or you get hired on with a gaming company. But you were always like, you were getting hired on at the at the low level tier of the
Parker,
job
I think
thing, right? So
I think we got a sneak peek into what you've been doing and what has been the background here. I remember the great scientist of the world, Albert Einstein, who once said that, creativity is more important than knowledge. And I would like Deepak ji to give his insights into, how creative people, when they become filmmakers, don't you think with the advent of more technology, they are just going to rule the arena of fantasies and filmmaking? What do you think, Deepak? Can you hear me?
What do I think about?
I wonder if Deepak ji can hear me. Vikas, I would like to have your more inputs.
Let me connect again because there is some technical error. So there's sound problem here.
Hello?
I'll connect again.
I can hear you now. I can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah, Professor Deepak is having problem. He said he'll join again in 2 minutes.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay, I'll now take it further to Vikas. Vikas, creative people.
We lost Sumitra also. So anyway, so Parker, the point is here. What we are doing is we are talking about global niche film festival, and we are encouraging here the the film who are like film which are focused more on nature, but we realize that we should not be having boundaries on this also. When it's global, it's a film festival, we should be talking about every film. I'll encourage you if you can talk a little about your plan for your next film, which we discuss and review your prototype kind of thing, the trailer with Deepak Chandra Goel. So let's have a discussion on that. Like, what is your vision on that? And Professor Deepak said he liked that initial animatic of that. So can we just review quickly on that? If it's nothing confidential on that thing on the panel.
Yeah, I saw the animatics, and first of all, I thought, because most of the time back in India, we always see the final finished product, and that was a kickback for me. That what I'm seeing here is this WIP or something like this. Then I said, hey, this is animatics that is being shown, and the content was awesome. Then I paused a little bit, and then there was no looking back. So I watched it for full length of it, and the movie adaptation would be very good and very classic if it is done in the right way. So I like the overall thing. And as far as I think, Madam, I forgot her name. When Madam told me that Suchitra, correct?
Sumitra.
Yeah, Sumitra. Okay. So when Ma'am told,
I think we've lost connection with Professor Deepak. Vikas, is there a teaser that we can show to the audience? I mean, like, that would be perfect.
It's there, but I don't think we should leave it on the public this thing right now because this is under development. So it may be a little proprietary for Parker. Although as a close team, I just shared with the Professor Deepak Chandra, and I can show you the offline, but not on the global panel, like which will be open to the live thing. So I'm sorry about that.
Professor Deepak back. Professor Deepak, you were saying something. I forgot. What was the last statement you said?
Yeah. I was telling about creativity and imagination. So see, a small person like me sitting in India, and he's lapping up. I'm lapping up storytelling and characters across the world, across different cultures. Like whether if you talk about the Aztec or the Peruvian or the Jewish or the Egyptian culture or the North Americans, Incas. So that way around. So every civilization has a story to tell, and animation. I always wanted to do animation, and I've been there in animation from past 30 years. And back in 1990s, we saw this thing in Illustrated Weekly. There was a very beautiful magazine called Illustrated Weekly. Nowadays, it doesn't come. And there it was pictured when in 1992 Steven Spielberg made Jurassic Park, and with the onslaught of CG. That was a very successful adventure that was done, and we stayed lapped up into 3D animation. And I agree with the foreign friend here. I'm forgetting his name. That everybody aspires to do a job in a production studio, and that's what I did. And I worked on 4K movies in 1998 with Pentamedia Graphics, and there was no looking back. And I've been there with no looking back for the next 20 years. So creativity and imagination go hand in hand, and with technology, you can take it to the new heights. So, for example, back then it was 2D, then finally 3D, and there were a lot of softwares out there. I'm not going to discuss the softwares, but now is with AR, VR, and XR. It will be much more beautiful, much more better, much more lethal, much more higher, and there will be a very strong dose for for the viewers and for the consumers worldwide. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Deepak. With that, I would get back to Parker once again. Parker, as Vikas was telling you, could you please share with us the vision behind this new upcoming film that you're trying to make? What is the vision behind that? What is it that you want to tell the people? What is the new thing? Yeah, over to you.
Well, there's sort of just kind of a long, strange story that leads up to me getting into the project that I'm going into right now. I won't get too heavy into the details of it, but of my journey coming up to this point, it's an animation film. As I sort of stated before, I mean, I was trying to do some live action movies that just never came to happen. I was quite frustrated, and doors shutting in your face. So I just basically, I was like, well, you know what? I'm gonna have to go back to animation if I really want to continue to do what I'm doing, just to really show that I just have the drive to make something that can hopefully impress people enough. Now, there was the vision behind this is, well, it's sort of a. There was a contest. One is that the story isn't. I'm taking a story that as I'm adapting a story that is from. I'm remaking an old movie. It's an adaptation of an old movie from the 1950s. That's sort of it's not obscure, but it's a lesser known movie that sort of has a bit of a cult following to it. I'm into science fiction and comic book art and things like that, and I sort of fell into this idea. There was a contest for what's the best there was a contest for script writing that was adapting a work of literature or a character that's in public domain, meaning that if to take a character like, say, like Peter Pan or Robin Hood or any of these characters, or a book or a story, something from like Charles Dickens or Shakespeare, and do a screenplay of it, and it was just a contest that would you'd win an award if whatever, right? So I was just like, oh, okay, because I've been to I read plays, adapted them and put them into contests in the past, and actually got some really good reviews on them, and even made to almost win some awards. I'd win a couple awards with some screenplays, but nothing really ever happened after that, and I was just at a dead end. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, this public domain thing, yeah. So then I was like, oh, I know exactly what I can do. It's just the most it's the most insane idea ever. So there's this movie that is in public domain, and but I'm adapting it though. It's just turned its own thing now. That is just, I took the premise of the idea, and then it just fits. It's a science fiction movie. It's campy. It's fun to watch. It's entertainment. But the movie itself is on its own is known for being like one of the worst movies ever made. and the premise to it is just ludicrously, it's just like weird, off the wall. But the filmmaker that made the movie, he didn't know what he had. It was just like, as soon as I started writing the script for it, making an adaptation for it, because it's so funny and campy, I decided to take it and modernize it and actually make it serious. Like, could I take this horrible idea? Well, it's not horrible; it's genius, actually. But and turn it into a really like profound justification for this story. It's turned out to be a really extreme writing challenge that I'm handling right to this very moment, actually. But so I wrote the screenplay into this contest, and I just thought maybe I would get some recognition and win something with it. It didn't really go anywhere with the contest, but I understand kind of why. I fell in love with the story in the end. I just fell in love with the script and the characters and how far I could take it. Originally, it was going to be a motion picture, but because there's so much in the story, it's like a science fiction epic saga that goes into Star Wars, Star Trek kind of territory, where it can really go on for quite a long time. So I'm adapting it to actually a mini series. So it's going to be an episode by episode that I can probably, kind of soap opera thing that will go on for, like, in the end, if I ever get it finished or made, I would probably have like a 5-6 hour long movie that a person can watch from beginning to end. But it's off of the premise of this old science fiction movie. So I just fell in love with the characters and everything that I just couldn't drop it. It was just, and it's advancing more and more each day. And the original script that I wrote just basically turned into basically a nice outline. So I take from my script now, and I build onto it every time I come up with ideas and things like that. And there's this other writer I've been introduced it to, and she gives me little ideas now and then. It's like, oh my goodness, it's just like I mean, it's what this, if there's any global message to it, it deals with war. It deals a lot with, like, with the nuclear age and weapons and stuff like that, like the nuclear bombings like that, and how what the outcomes can be, with people in power that can have such, mass destruction, at the push of a button, what could drive something to the end of the world kind of thing, and everyone else around trying to deal with it. And there's aliens involved that, that come in and try and deal with the situation. It's a galactic war thing on Earth that sort of happens, but it's done in a certain tongue-in-cheek way with so there isn't, I mean, I'm trying to make it this a neat sort of anti, or anti weapons of mass destruction kind of thing, but there's all these wonderful comic book animation elements to it that deal with aliens and zombies and Air Force fighter pilots getting involved in the lives of all the people trying to deal with the situation, with aliens coming in and using zombies to destroy the Earth, to stop the Earth from destroying the universe with a weapon kind of thing. So it's just like a gigantuan sort of story that seems, it's hard for me to describe it right now, but it's a big vision that I do have an end game to it, and I really want to do whatever I can do to find it to the end. So, but right now I'm just right at the very, very beginning, and this is going to take me like years of my life to try and see this as far as I can go with it. So right now I'm starting off at the beginning, and I'm finding myself maybe putting myself in a position where maybe I might be able to find some funding or financing for it and get some other people on board. So yeah, that's the current project. If the title of it is called Destroyed Worlds.
Okay, I think, Parker, that's the best that you've told us. Could you tell me which are these characters who you really live your life with? Like, I have some characters about whom I've read in novels and movies. There are some characters which live within me. So is there any character that you've built and that the characters are always live with you? Or how do you ideate the characters? Once when you draft the script and now when you take it into a film as an adaptation, how does that differ? Do you have such characters?
Well, sort of. I put as much of myself into the characters as I can. There isn't really any one single character that's excuse me, mimic off of myself, or really has my own sort of. What's kind of interesting is I sort of took the characters that were from the original movie and I just sort of built onto them. There are certain characters, but they all developed a life of their own. It was sort of like, it was like, it's like having a child, right? So, originally here's how I'm writing it, but then all of a sudden, I start finding that, some of them really start to really evolve as soon as I have the picture in my head, especially once you start doing drawings of them and even studying, putting animation to them to life. And I don't know, there's an alien. There's a couple female characters that are in the stories that I hold more strongly about than some of the male characters. There's one male character that would probably say it would probably, the main male character would probably be, you know, someone like myself. I would probably say when I give him lines and his thoughts and ideas are sort of similar to my own, to tell you the truth. So there is the main male character in the story. He's an air fighter pilot who's who's dealing with this out of world situation that's going on with him and the aliens that are coming in. But there's this female alien character who I just really attached to. I don't know, there was just like something so wonderful about her fantasy story that I came up with this backstory for her that's presented in the course of the actual miniseries. But just writing her and developing her, originally she's this female main alien character. She's like bad, you know, like she wants to destroy the world, and like she's the antagonist of the story, like right off the bat. But by the end of the story, by the end of the whole series, she becomes one of the most cared for characters in the story. So she has a wonderful arc that I can put into the story. I always try and do that, you know, that 3-dimensional character thing where, you know, every character, what is their emotions, what's you know, what makes them laugh, what makes them cry, put them into situations that challenge them, and you know, and can you and that, is there that character change that you can put, you know, where they're like in certain mindset at the beginning, but then things kind of change at the end. So I try to put all those into all the characters. She probably has the strongest of the character arcs. I really enjoyed writing her, and I'm trying to do that with all the other characters as well. But there's like 10, 12 characters in this whole thing, and trying to develop these intense, you know, 3-dimensional relationships with all of them. It's quite the challenge writing them, I'll tell you that. But yeah, no, the two main characters I are sort of weird ways kind of myself, like you say. The male character has one aspect of me, and that that lead female alien character has another aspect of me. But I mean, I'm not like a space warrior or anything like that, you know. I just a lot of fantasy going on in my head, right? You know, but you know, like the guys that, you know,
Okay.
that, you know.
Yeah, got that. Yeah. Got that, Parker. That's nice. I'll come back to Vikas. Let me get back to that time, you know, when Jane Austen wrote Pride and Prejudice, and the film adaptation that we had was Bride and Prejudice with the major character of Darcy. So, do you think when the narrative shifts from the script to the screen, do you think the audience changes? Do you think the dialogues change? There is a difference while you move from the script to screen. Over to you, Vikas.
Yeah, see, as we discussed yesterday with John Booker, my thing is like I am totally like I give the preference for the audience to drive the thing, and I'm more of an XR storyteller where all the liberty is with you, and it is all about the liberty is all the audiences. So this is happening right now. So most of my concept, my content are driven by the thing, and I actually named it as reboot cinema. So the cinema is rechanging now. So your dialogues is in your hand, your decision, and only experiment which I've seen this year was from Netflix. They came out with the Blender Snatch kind of series where you can decide what kind of story will flow in even on Netflix right now. And now we have the freedom to have the camera also placed the way you want. So in XR storytelling, that's what we are focusing on. So in my case, if you're asking me, it's entirely different kind of feedback than the rest of the world. Because I'm giving the liberty to you. You decide what dialects they want to do. And actually today, the technology allows us to do the changes in any kind of language. And if like right now you're interviewing me in English, if you want to change it, those technologies, your question may be with your avatar. Your avatar could be Mira. I believe Mira is your favorite. So Mira could be asking your question in French to me, and I could be replying in maybe Spanish. So my dialogues, and those dialogues can be, I can decide what kind of response has to go. So the dialogue, the scenario, everything real time is possible with some technology. Like good example is Microsoft HoloLens. Within that, we can do that kind of thing. So there's so much happening. So it's like
Yeah, got that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the 40th day, 105th session at the 5th Global Nature Film Festival, and we are live in conversation with Mr. Parker Bisco, who's a film producer at Solid Chrome Films. We are also with Vikas Tomar, who is heading the BTX City. We're also with Professor Deepak and Guruji Bhu. Now, I'll come back to Professor Deepak. Professor Deepak, I'll tell you how the paradigms have shifted once when we had the Jurassic Park movie coming in, and now when we have this movie called Bahubali. So, both the movies changed the paradigms in the 3D animation and the visual effects. Professor Deepak, what is your take on the changing paradigms in video editing, film adaptation, as well as the technicalities in filmmaking? Over to you, Professor Deepak. I've given you two examples. One, which was, some 20, 15 years back, and now just 2 years back. There's a difference. But the paradigm shift is very, very conspicuous. It is totally filtered, diluted, and totally now in the skin of the filmmakers. Now we cannot imagine movies without these effects. Over to you, Professor Deepak.
Yeah, thanks. You give me two ends of the rope, and I'll tie them both. So
I'm sure you'll do it.
1992, yeah, when 1992, when Jurassic Park hit the screen, there was no looking back, and people were mesmerized. I also thank Tippett, John Tippett from Tippett Studios. Without him, Steven Spielberg would have not been able to realize the models they were on the screen. So, and none other than ILM also. So this was the place where I always wanted to work. And now, if you talk about Bahubali, Bahubali is not a landmark. Yes, for in the Indian film industry, it might be because the kind of effects they have achieved. But if you see, there are a lot of movies down there. So if somebody would have seen Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within, that was the basically major breaker. And then movies like Matrix Revolutions, the Matrix range, then the X-Men range, the whole X-Men series, then the Avengers, starting with Thor and ending with the End Game. I always wanted to make Avengers after game, and it will not be a game; it will be a big movie adaptation out there. And yes, coming back to your question, technology has never been so much available, easily accessible to people worldwide. So whether there is a person who is sitting on his mobile phone and trying to conjure up some special effects, like even sending emoticons on a chat, a child is able to do it. Previously, 20 years back, they were never able to do it because the technology was not there. Now everybody is into experimental animation and is expressing himself or herself not only on the desktop but also on an editing table. Nobody previously there were costly things like Avid and Flint, Fire, Flame, Inferno. Those were the kind of suits people would aspire to work on. But nowadays, FCP is gone so cheap, and the other softwares down the line in the free market with open source thing, everybody is experimenting. I mean, nobody thought of that Blender will overtake uh, a big CG effect or a big part in the CG cake after Maya or 3ds Max. But things are there now. Everybody's into Blender and trying to come up with some sort of modeling or texturing or lighting or animation or rendering or special effects. So commercials are being made using Blender. So with the onslaught of technology, things have been never looking back. And I believe technology like augmented reality, virtual reality, and extended reality, which will be much more accessible in the next 5 years down the line. I was reading and talking to Vikas also on the GP Bullhound's take on the future of XR, and it is really awesome when you talk about in terms of filmmaking. Now, so coming back to your question, like Bahubali would not have been possible if technology was not there, because we Indians, Hindustan, or people from Hindustan, they don't like to experiment. Where animation is an experimental art that took its birth in the western part of India, western part of the world, something like this. So that is there we need to side on. For example, if we look at in the South Indian context or movies down south, they are the people who try to experiment. And when I was watching movies, like I worked on a lot of South Indian movies also, so they are very much open to animation and special effects. So this is a cultural mindset. So, for example, a very good example from a North Indian film like Bollywood, we have a film called Zero. That
Yeah.
was one of the best effects still that have been taken so far by Shah Rukh Khan, and really a lot of work on each and every frame was there, and the
I would
results
like
speak
to
for
interrupt
themselves.
here. I would like to interrupt here, Professor Deepak. If you've seen the movie Zero, towards the
Mm.
end, Shah Rukh Khan, like he comes from somewhere, he was revolving in the space, and he comes down and he tells people, you all people have become quite old, and look at me, I still look the young guy who was there. Do you know what is the logic behind that? When you are traveling in space, aging, there is no aging at all. That's for the people to understand. So with that, I think science also travels much from fiction to fantasy to films. I will now come back
Mm.
directly to Parker. Parker, you there is Parker has forayed into a film which is based on folklore. Parker, right? So I have something on my mind. Do you know uh, who actually built the pyramids in Egypt? These were the Jewish people who had built the pyramids. The folklore has it that these were the Jewish people who knew the art of building pyramids. Nobody knows how exactly what were the dimensions, what were the calculations of the pyramids, but a pyramid is built in a manner that it has got many, many, many mystical wonders. So, one of the mystics of the pyramids, the folklore says, is that there is no aging inside a pyramid, and that only the Jewish people knew who originally built the pyramids. I would like to know more about this short film titled Folklore. Whom did you get this inspiration, Parker, and what does this folklore contain of? From where did you get this concept, and what have been the influence of different folklores on this film? Over to you, Mr. Parker.
My short film Folklore.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually it's based off of an actual old folklore story that's been sort of translated for several cultures. There's even a version of it in India. The main version of it is comes from locations in the main version of it comes from Scotland. But I was reading a book on just folklore tales, and I just read this one tale that it has different names, but it's you'll have to sort of it's just a heart gripping. The premise to it is so depressing. It's just like, oh my god. I mean, the original story, I believe, the original title of the story is called "The Man Who Killed His Dog." It's just this. It was just like it's only like it's not very long. It's just about this man who has a dog and a wife and a kid, and the dog, the man doesn't like the dog. The mother likes the dog, and he has a child, and he keeps the dog away from the child. And one day the man goes away, and he comes back, and he sees the dog in the house, and there's blood all over the place, and the child isn't there. And so the man gets enraged, and he kills the dog. And then all of a sudden, after he goes back into the house, and he sees that the baby's still alive, and actually there was a wolf that was lying dead next to the baby, and that the dog actually did was kill the wolf. He was actually trying to save the baby from being eaten by a wolf, and the man was in tears and pain and agony, and eventually what he did was he built a monument to where the dog died, and then the end of the story is the man never smiled ever again. So I excuse the laughing, but but I read this thing, I was just like, oh my god, that is the most depressing story I ever read in my whole entire life. And I was just like, I have to make a movie about this. I actually sort of made it as an experiment to see how fast I can make a person cry within a short film. And there's many adaptations to it. Actually, there is one in India that is even more darker and depressing than the Scottish version of it. And it was the mother gives birth to a mongoose, and whatever the deal is, I don't know. But that's and it has this thing going on. And I'm sort of a very big fan of like surrealistic films like David Lynch and stuff like that, like Eraserhead and things like that. So I just made this old adapted folklore tale. I set it in like in a sort of in a backwoods cabin, like late 19th century kind of, where there's like a hillbilly kind of setting with an old cabin and stuff like that. And the mother gives birth to this beast baby. It's a beast baby. Shoot, I can even have the puppets. I wasn't prepared enough I could show you the props that I still have for it. I had like puppets and all this kind of stuff and costumes, and the beast baby grows up into I had like a child that was a kid that I went to Vancouver, and we got a makeup effects artist to build a costume for it, for the kid and stuff like that. So yeah, that's, and I shot the film. I just using my own money and family money. People were quite supportive. I did write a screenplay and won a little award for it, like a third place prize, which helped to get people kind of go, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. I mean, it was a simple story to put together. It has its little issues. I'm looking back at it now, I'm going, wow, yeah, there's some stuff here I could redo, but it's sort of, I wanted to use it as a calling card. It did get me on IMDb. Yeah, I played at a number of festivals actually, and there was a film festival in California at Modesto, which is near Sacramento. There was the Shocker Fest Film Festival, and they had a mini fantasy short. Actually, I might be able to show you the award here. I got this for folklore. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I won the mini short fantasy award for folklore there. It was best, best short film. There was like 5 that were in contention, and I won best short fantasy and best editing award for it from. So I got some accolades with it. I got on IMDb. I've been using it as a calling card. It never really ever did anything other than just I just sort of use it as well. It's just, at least put me a little bit on the map. If you go on IMDb and type in folklore 2007, you'll go onto my page, and you can actually watch it right there on IMDb. It's you can stream it right there and see the whole film. It's about 15 minutes long. So yeah, it's sort of just an interesting story. I don't know. There's a certain message to it. I never really. I don't know. Well, it depends. Like, never judge a book by its cover. Never. Just because something's ugly and looks weird doesn't mean that it's not caring and loving, and just like judgment of people and stuff like that. It's an interesting story that has a deep meaning, but to me it was just so depressing. It was just like, comedy is one thing, but being, I'm not very good. I'm not good at writing comedy or anything like that. I'm terrible at comedy. But trying to find the most depressing thing going on is just like, okay, yeah. So that was sort of my whole thing with folklore, and that's, yeah.
Yeah, so you got to be got to be into that your psychology as a filmmaker, as a person. Everything has to be blended in order to get that perfect blend of the script and the screen. I'll finally, Parker, we all would like to know, you as an independent filmmaker must have been on a journey that was full of hardship. And also, you've toiled a lot, worked hard. You have those skill sets which has put you on the global map, making independent films and thinking about the topics which are of contemporary significance. So, who do you attribute your success to? We would like to know, learn from you. What has been your success story? How would you relay your success story? Over to you, Parker.
My success story. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not. I'm
On the way to success. Yeah.
I'm not really. I'm not. I mean, I'm not successful. I mean, I'm going to have to say just it's just the way that it is for probably most independent filmmakers. I mean, what surprises people the most about probably what I'm doing is that I'm still doing it. Everybody I know that in the past, other than say I still, I've still been monitoring Vicus, and there's a couple other people that I've known in the past that sort of are still like puttering away at this. But so I've been doing this since I was like a kid, and now I'm in my. I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm super old, but I'm in my. I'm latter. I'm 51 right now, so so I'm still doing it, and a lot of people that I have met some people that have known me in the past with me entering screenplays and trying to pitch movies, stuff like that, and they go, "Wow, you're still everyone knows not doing this anymore, but you're still doing it." And it's like, yeah, I'm still doing it. It's I mean, it depends on. I mean, the level of success is I haven't achieved it yet. I mean, it's other than I'm succeeding in just continuing to still move and build on. And like Mr. Deepak said, right now, what I'm using for The Story of Worlds, my mini series, is I'm using Blender, and it's absolutely incredible. I couldn't believe when I stumbled onto this program. I stumbled onto it right at the right time, too, just like over the past year or so, where they've just been majorly developing it. And I'm going, holy smokes. And this is for free? I mean, you can give donations, and I do whatever I can to help out. But, it's to me, but this is helping me to build my success more. This doesn't even, like, I could have tossed my stuff away a long time ago and said I give up. It's the Hollywood adage of, they chew you up, spit you out, or you're trying to make it is just so difficult. But if you have the drive and use what's available to you now, like right now, my story, no one's really read or seen anything of it, but I supersonically believe in it. And then when I put my stuff together for it, with my models and working with the animation and using Blender and the Adobe stuff and whatever, it boosts me. It encourages me. It makes me feel that at some point, something like this now gives me the chance really showing that I can be successful. I can show it's everything in my hands that no one can stop me now, because really, trying to pitch live action films before I did this was trying to do live action is so hard. It's so difficult. It's so much money. There's so many bad people out there that I've been steered in so many directions that have really messed me. And just once I broke away from that and decided to go back into, well, now I'm doing animation. Yes, that's right. I'm still working on it. I said, no, I'm not doing it anymore. But now I just feel the success is about to come. It's just like, really, you build it, they will come. Nothing can really stop me at this point. I just feel, I don't know, maybe in the end, this thing won't work out, but it's not right now. I just feel really good about what I'm doing. And maybe at some point it will pay off as long as I keep doing it. And if I don't show anything, then nothing will happen. If I just sit around and just play video games, I can't do that. I appreciate the video game market and everything like that and all kind of stuff, but I'm a doer. I'm just not a sit backer and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah, got
basically
that.
been
Wait,
attributed to me and my
you
drive.
know what? Vikas, this reminds me of Jig Jigler, who once said, "It is not your aptitude, rather your attitude that determines your altitude." So I think, Parker, you are not at 51 radar, but I think after 20s, it's always 21 radar. So I think we all have enough time to do much in the world, and I think it's from the journey of one person's life that we learn a lot, not much from what a person has achieved at the pinnacle of success, because the life journey teaches us so many things. I'll now get back to Vikas Tomar. Vikas, your association with Parker has also been long. So I'm sure, as friends, as colleagues, as business partners, as learners from each other, as storytellers, as being creative masterminds, what do you think, Vikas? Do you join Parker in saying that uh, it is it in your hands that you should keep going, or do you think the environment also puts you in some kinds of stress, or it is just your inner thing that tells you, no, Vikas, onward forever, just go on? What do you think, Vikas?
It's absolutely within your mind. And like the live example of this, I'll bring from my family only. My mother died 5 years ago, and she had cancer for 5 years before that. And that's why I couldn't go back to Canada. And she has very strong willpower. And what you're asking is like very well written in. We all believe in DNA, and especially in India, we say, "Arey yaar, tu to Rajput hai, tera to ye commitment hai." Like people have that, like you to baniya hai, like and you tyagi hai. Everybody has their own mindset. Like if you are this, you are that. So this actually is hereditary. Everybody knows about this thing, something called DNA, and within DNA, it's written pre-written, but it's the concept is totally different. There's a book written by Bruce Lipton, and Bruce Lipton says that Bruce Lipton says ki in this industry, when you are like, see, there's something written on my. I'm keeping it very simple. It's a very detailed book written by the scientist called Bruce Lipton, Biology of Belief. And Biology of Belief says whatever you determine, the whole universe changes accordingly. And so the dialogue in Shah Rukh Khan's movie also, Kudrat aapke usi तरह से, he's a like bomb diffuse guy in one of the movie. I'm sure you will remember that movie. So that's for reality. That's for real. So what happens in real life? If there's something written, say I'm giving a very simple layman example. If something written, the tattoo is there on my skin, you cannot read it unless I remove that thing, right? Suppose there's a tattoo here, you can't read it till I remove my sleeves on that. So in the scenario, the thing happens like DNA has written something in us, but we have to revolve it, and that comes from the environment. And environment is something which people tell. If my mother died because of cancer, if people keep saying, "Hey, because your mom died because of cancer, you be cautious, you be cautious, you be cautious." The thing strikes, and my cells are really going to be damaging me, and I'm going to have cancer for sure. On the other hand, if somebody says, "No, because she was so brave, she fought for this for 5 years," I can probably, even if I have it, I'll fight for 10 years. So this all is in your brain. And the best example, what I did in India when I floated my own first gaming college in India, these people, I introduced a course called NLP, in the same thing, Neuro Linguistic Programming. And for my launch, I had this guy from, this guy is Phil. Phil was the one who has made Phil Mitchell. Phil Mitchell is the first animator who made this film. He's a founder team member for the company which has floated 3D animated. This one, the very first serial, Reboot. Reboot was the first 3D animation serial of the world. So he made that one, and he was making Spider-Man and Barbie and all the kind of shows. So when he came for the launch in India for my first gaming show, I introduced this program NLP to all my animation and gaming students. And the Phil Mitchell was like, "Why are we teaching NLP to a student in animation?" And then trust me, the first batch has won awards, and they won Oscar awards. They've been working with this guy, Shah Rukh Khan's film production, the Red Michi productions and all that. And these guys have changed their mind just because of NLP. Like if you train your brain, you can change anything. That's for real. It's not in the fiction. It's not a myth. So I strongly believe it's all in your brain. And the biology really works on that. And our cells work accordingly on that.
Yeah, fine. That's really nice. And this idea never came to my mind. Those 11 attributes of NLP, if you can show that through animation, I think that will have a very different impact on the people because of the audio visual effects and other things. The Professor Deepak, we are towards the last segment of our talk today with Parker today here at the 40th day, 105th session at the 5th Global Nature Film Festival. So, Deepak, Professor Deepak, who do you attribute your success or you being so motivated from within? Like Mr. Parker said, that nobody can defeat you. It's just you yourself who can defeat you. So, how is it with you, Professor Deepak? And then I will ask Mr. Parker to give his remarks. Yeah, Professor Deepak.
Yeah. See, basically, it is a very complex process. So, if we coin the word epigenetics, and I was discussing this 5 years back with Mr. Vikas Tumba, that same three children are born from the womb of the single mother, and the outcome of their life is different. Somebody is meek, somebody is valiant, somebody is coward, but they are born from the same blood, they're from same bloodline. So what makes somebody stand out is the struggles he has gone through, he or she has gone through, the personality that has evolved. So that is basically a game changer. So, for example, if we look at this movie called 10,000 BC, now 10,000 BC, or maybe don't even go there. For example, if you have something like the classic case of Moses, nobody knew Moses until he crossed the ocean. Until that, he was just a leader standing before the ocean. And but the moment he said, "Let's part," the waves parted, and he took this people to safety. So that's what I was driving back home 2 days back. So I was thinking on the same lines. So you see, heroes are never born; they are made, and circumstances make them. So you look at any culture, any situation. If somebody has, for example, even if you look at Bahubali, the movie, so he was just a simple prince, and he was very well taken up. But you see, from the same mother, one brother is cunning and shrewd and hard and cruel, and other he is benevolent, and he is fighting all odds. So you have to look at from that perspective. So what is more important is basically not only an NLP or genetics or epigenetics, but also what is that personality or that seed is coming or grooming them into. For example, they might be the same seed which has grew in ideal conditions, will not survive, but a seed which has faced the harshness of nature and has survived is basically is the winner. So I will take my example itself. So I am getting dialyzed. I go for dialysis every second day or third day, and still I'm happy. Because even my professors, they tell me how you're working, how you're managing. They're telling I tell them I is my body that is getting dialyzed. By mind, I'm very much free and very much a free thinker and very creative. So it's my body which is in the problem, but my mind is there. So that simple conviction doesn't come from an ideology. It comes from years of practice and how hard you can be on yourself. So, for example, lastly, I'd like to quote. If you see this movie 300, there were 300 people, 300 Spartans who stood against the whole army, and they defeated. And what the outcome is different, but it is written down in the annals of history, in the annals of mythology. So that is what these are the stories that somebody gets inspired from. So things like that, and I can go on and on and on. So that is not the
I
big deal.
think,
But what I'm
Professor
trying to tell is,
Deepak,
yes,
Professor Deepak, I think such a good thought and a deeper thought can only come from a professor. Well, such a big thought, it's the body that's undergoing the damage and the other things. It's not the mind and the soul or the thought that is undergoing the pain. That's a very deep thought, and I think we can have another session on that. But the story of Sparta and Athens also give us a different dimension. That maybe you can be skilled at a very particular art, but the figment of imagination of one person can change the annals of history. I will now come back directly to Mr. Parker. So, Mr. Parker, there is an institute in India, as you are based in Canada and Vikas also. So there is this institute in India which is called as Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute that deals with the mutual academic exchange, and that is also much into research. Now that we forayed into Industry 4.0, I have a very strong, I feel that, there can be some connect between industry, academia. How do you build that up, Vikas? If you would like to relate Canadian institute with an Indian institute and get this done? How are we going to bridge that? I think Parker,
yeah, I think we lost Parker on this. Maybe I think some signal
you
problem.
can connect with him. You can call him. So in the meanwhile, maybe Professor Deepak, I'm sure you know about the Indo-Canadian Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute. So if filmmaking
Yes.
research body can be integrated into the industry format, Parker is back. So Parker, we have this
Nope.
Shastri Indo-Canadian Research Institute that is into mutual academic exchange. If by Industry 4.0, we would like to integrate filmmaking as a part of the research initiative from Canada, led by you and Vikas. How do we start with that? And if because I come from academia, so how three of us can collate and collaborate to bring this up? I think all of you can tell me, and rather we all can take it forward. Over to Parker first.
Can you repeat the question?
The question is, how do we integrate an industry-based approach of Canada like yours, a filmmaker, into a research institute which is funded by the government of India? Is that correct, Vikas? I've made it clear?
Yeah, Parker is about the association we are talking about. Actually, just to bridge both of the thing. Let me just. In Canada, India is not structured, but when you go to Canada, most of the things are very well structured, and the things which we do are very well planned. And these are the things which you need to look and share with them. This is the very first literature I got from in British Columbia when I got into the orientation kind of thing. So everything is very well written, and everything is very well planned out. In India, we just don't do it. Although, since Lagan first movie came, in Lagan, there was the first movie which has started doing all the audit and every payment done by this. I'll show you one example here, even for this film also. Nirupa, can you get me that? बाहर जो वो हट रखी है ना, वो छोटी हट को डस्टिंग करके दे दे मेरे को, जो रखी है ना, झोपड़ी रखी वाली. So I'll just show you one of the example how we create on that. So of course we can do it. And very first project we did was the Indo-Canadian project only, which he did. I shared with my partners in Hyderabad and in New Zealand, and most of the work in visual effects was done in India. Although we not taken any government kind of support, but we did introduce a lot of Canadian faculty to India, and we were actually initially planning to launch it in Amity itself. We had several meetings with Dr. Ashok Chauhan and Asim Chauhanji on that. And now, as you are initiating this again and again, even yesterday you talked about the Indology, so we can integrate that Indology, and because RN is also Canadian, so we can have the Canadian and this one anytime it's right here. It's a very good idea, and because his concept, what he's writing right now, it's also can be treated as a global one, and science fiction, what he's doing is aliens, science fiction, White House, so we can always have something I just saw this thing called Special Ops. So we can start exchanging thoughts, what we are doing in India, and he's doing the White House incident. We can take a special ops kind of incident. We can bridge together, and we can have those kind of initiative. And even Parker has access to. In Canada, there are good funds available for original Canadian people, Aboriginals. So he has access to them. We can reach out to them. And in India, for Lal Bahadur Shastri, we can do it. And even this project itself, we can make it a fusion between Indian and those kind of I'm just precisely creating the special ops. We can bridge with this kind of thing, which he's doing is they're attacking on the thing. And just to give a small example here, when we did this movie Folklore, I created that kind of dummy model here. This is the set from the Folklore only, by the way, this actual set. Parker, you remember that?
Yeah.
that was the dream model which we created. I still preserve it. Always been like, and I also have that character which we created. And if you allow me for a minute, I'll grab that the sculpting what he's talking about. We do that, and in India, as Deepak also just said, we don't generally do any planning. We just get into it. So this was the house of that guy, like the folklore main story goes around. So this real hut. So I created this one. I'll get you my 3D sculpture also. I think I still have it. Give me a second. Give me a minute. Deepak, you can continue till I bring that set also.
Yeah. So I will pick up the thread where ma'am just pulled it off, and Vikas took a leave for a minute or so. So a very classic example I'll give you there. Aboriginals from Australia. The Aboriginal art from Australia. That was Aboriginal art from Australia is a very different way of picturizing and depicting things. So what they did is a lovely experiment. We try to train students to go for beautiful art on Wacom, using Wacom. So they took a very bold initiative, and the people who were used to do painting on the walls and the Aboriginals from Australia, they were trained to use Wacom. See, such a drastic contrast. So the Aboriginals from Australia.
Oh, and this character is what? Oh, I have seen this in movies, Which character is this?
This is a character conceived by Parker, and
They were trained as animators to do
What is the name of the character?
traditional art using the tablet. So that was basically a mix of technology as well as old ancient knowledge, and
Too
finesse
good.
of doing it on the
Very
natural
nice,
media.
beautiful. See, so much of hard work put in. Lovely. It's so creative.
I remember when we created this one, we created in 3D, and we took a boy, I think his name was Max. Max was a kid who has made this character. So we created actually a folklore, this guy was the wolf and a human both together.
Okay.
So there was a challenge how to put this, because you see the bones out here. We can't shoot that thing. We either shoot the lower side of a wolf or the upper body. So we went out and we did the complete prosthetics in one of the best studio back in Vancouver. And it was a big challenge because the makeup setting up for this prosthetic was taking about 15 hours to do, from 10 to 15 hours to do the makeup. And this is a small kid. I think the kid who was acting on this was about 8 years old. So being in putting all the makeup on, that was a big challenge. So what we did, we did some live shot with the prosthetic, and that shot we did with 3D animation. We did the rigging where we had the extra bone, so it looks like this thing. So these are the two things which I just give you an example how the structure and unstructured thing. And on other end, we took this house which we had created before we do the camera movement, like how the camera is going to move, and all that things planned much before we do the actual shooting kind of thing. So that's a major difference in looking in the Indian film industry versus the Canadian film industry, and all these things we learn from all the British Columbia kind of guidance. These are the things which need to be translated from Indian this movie making versus Canadian filmmaking. And we can always, I'm for that. We already initiated together.
Vikas, I think it's time that we start building up this fusion and the blend and establish the center at the earliest, because I will give you the rough draft maybe within a day or two, because the film festival ends today. What should be the outcome of this film festival? So I think the bigger outcome of this film festival can be establishing an Canadian Center at Amity University, wherein we can do a lot of research and industry work, maybe filmmaking, maybe a center of Indology. Much can be done, because since yesterday evening when we had a talk, you know, I'm a very creative person, so I just kept on thinking so many things, and today you've given me a new paradigm. I think we can also get into movie making, you know, short documentaries through this center. I think we will require the help of Mr. Parker also, and with the brilliant mind of Guruji, because it is all his blessings that I have. So I think, Vikas, now what do you suggest? It's been more than 1 hour and 20 minutes that we've been talking. So what do you suggest now? Should we take it further, or we would like to wrap up
No, I
here?
think we can start wrapping up on, but I'm open for this idea of doing Indo-Canadian, and like we already launched this yesterday. We they're giving that immersive and anthology thing kind of thing. What you propose? So let's integrate everything together. Parker is like very nice person as individual. I know him, and he was the most outstanding person in the group of 40 people in that when he was doing his classes. There was the most like unconventionally kind of going person. So he is a perfect for this. And we got Aryan already. So Aryan could be a best bridge for bridging all that. And John
Of
Booker is
course.
already on part of it. So we already have about a dozen people on the panel right now on that.
Right, of course. So, towards the last segment of wrapping up this entire expert talk by our guest today, Mr. Parker, I would now request all the panelists up here, including Guruji, to tell us how such global film festivals, this is the 40th day, 105th session, how such global film festivals can act as a catalyst for upcoming filmmakers, for talented children like Aryan Tomar, and for academics like me and like Professor Deepak, with a very talented, expert, brilliant mind, Vikas Tomar here, and with a global think tank like Guruji himself. What do you all suggest, esteemed panelists? What do you all suggest? What should be the vision of such global film festivals? And do you see some tangible and intangible outcomes of such film festivals? Because in 40 days, I think hundreds and thousands of people have seen all the sessions. Many people have come from different countries. The film festival has gone truly global in letter and in spirit. So I would request Mr. Parker to go first and tell us what could be a better vision to establish such global film festivals. Over to you, Mr. Parker. Can you hear me, Mr. Parker?
I never really even knew it. Hello?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, we can hear you.
can you hear me?
Yeah, audible.
Hello?
Yeah, hello, we are there. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, well, hello? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah?
Mr. Parker. Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you. Yes.
Hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello. Yes, you're audible.
Okay, good. Yeah, I haven't heard of the festival. Yeah, and I'm quite excited by this. This is quite interesting. That I can be over here and over there. I think this is a very unique format for the way that I see this whole festival and industry coming together. I can't sort of thinking that this is neat how we can develop relationships for making productions and films and whatever. And I can just do it here over my phone, talking with you guys and conversing in strong panels of creativity and whatnot. I'd say whatever can be done to keep this going. I'll most definitely be support goes and continues. I over here. I mean, I people that were pretty interested in wanting to get involved as well. I have a first for my current project, so I have access to him and his group of people here in Canada, and whatever we can do to further what you guys are doing over there. this is the perfect format. This is a really very interesting experience. So yeah, that's basically. I'm feeling quite positive concerning what you guys are doing, and don't really know much more about how I can add to it in terms of thinking about to make it better. But if I slept on it a little bit more, some more ideas would come. But right now, this is a very neat experience.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I'll now get back to Professor Deepak for his final remarks on the show today, and then I will ask Vikas Tomar to finally wind it up, taking Guruji's comments. Yes, Professor Deepak.
So, very well said by our foreign friend. Events like this, they call in for a good number of talented people who think alike, and this is a very good platform. So we not only if we do it from like Indo-Canadian perspective, where we can get good number of producers, directors, as well as aspiring animators to showcase their work, showcase their skills. So we'll have a very good pool of talent, a talent pool that we can use in for our future productions. So I myself is a member of Visual Effects Society, and I feel that we can find more of such projects, people on such platform, and we can take it forward. And as regards the film festival, this film festival will not only create a global viewership, but also bring a lot of people on the same page who think they are alone, but yes, they are not alone. They are spread out throughout the world, and they think alike, and they find a common platform to express their ideas and their thoughts. And I think uh, global film festivals like this should be encouraged, and they should be done regularly, not yearly, but on a 6 month basis or maybe on a 3 month basis. So there we can have more frequency, more people, more projects, more showcases. Thank you.
Yeah, finally, Mr. Vikas, it's over to you. And I also had something on my mind. Now that Parker is here, I would like to inform Parker and also Vikas. I'm trying to spearhead Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji's 152 campaigns, of which one is Atmanirbhar Bharat and the other one is showcasing how India can be transformed by trying to build up entrepreneurial abilities in the people. And I think independent filmmakers like you, and as a very successful entrepreneur like Vikas, I think both of you are assets not only for our country but also to the entire globe. Over to Vikas ji. Vikas, for your comments, please.
I'll be very happy to have to be associated with your this initiative with Mr. Modi. And as we discussed yesterday, also Mr. Modi has discussed about the storytelling, and he said this is one of the most important thing in the pandemic we had. So let's continue working on the independent filmmaking around like Indian heroes or like people who have brought us freedom, because this year is going to be 75th year of freedom for India. So we should take the experience from the international filmmakers like John Booker or like with Parker, and we should make this young groups association, which we already decided yesterday with Aryan. Aryan could be like, he's a bridge who Indian and Canadian both culture he understand, and we had to do the fusion of the, like, I think one of the best example for this could be Rang De Basanti, which has brought the history to the real problem today. So we should be doing those kind of content, and I'll be more than happy to contribute my best for that, for social cause as well as for the growth of the nation too. And I'm sure that I feel so honored like to discuss on that, and like about bridging on this. All the last 2 years I've been working mostly Indo-Korean, but Canada is like, I lived in Canada for 8 years, like straight from there. My Aryan is Canadian. I started my career for filmography from Canada. I'll be very delighted. And by the way, my other partner who we dealt with, he's working with Jackie Chan, and like he has been sending the message for global film kind of thing for the nature, especially with Jackie Chan. So he also floated a company in Canada recently where it's backed up by Jackie Chan, Michael, and James, who are the very well-known people with Disney and Sony kind of people. so we can bridge with them also. And we created already a company called Canada Film Group, CFG. So we'll bridge with through CFG and Parker, and let's do it. And the year, let's take a resolution that this year, as Professor Deepak also said, let's do it in a bi-weekly basis. So rather than like doing 100 session in a month, we should be spreading like maybe 100 session in a year. So we should continue doing from January itself rather than putting all the things, all the energy now. And Sumitra, although I know you for last 2 weeks only, but you look so active, so small, like so humble also, and you know so much about everything we talk about. I thought you are a law person, so you'll be talking more legal thing, but you're so much into mythology. You understand all that from Egypt to Canada to Lal Bahadur Shastri to anything. So I'll be happy to have more, like maybe 100. Let's plan it like we do 108 session in 12 months rather than in 40 days. So I invite the larger panel to continue to contribute. I'm into it for sure.
Beautiful words, Vikasji. I would like to tell you that, Swami Vivekananda, speaking of himself, once he said that he himself is a condensed India. Once I was talking to Guruji and I told Guruji, it's been a long time studying. I did law, I did PhD, I did my MBA, but then it's time that I should garner and treasure with me all the wealth that my country harbors, the treasures of my country, which is in the form of a mystic, which is in the form of good thoughts. So that's lovely. Your words are so beautiful, and also it has tugged my heartstrings somewhere. And I also myself feel that I am a condensed India, and I would like to share the treasure of my country across the borders and build friendship beyond borders. And I have never been to Canada, but through Michael Undaji's books, English Patient, I think there is some Canadian inside me. And in the skin of a lion, I think I breathe the air that's there in Canada, and in me, I have the spirit of a soldier. So I truly believe that this friendship beyond borders is going to go a long way. And as the world has shrunk on the internet, with the Guruji's blessings that I have, I'm sure that this camaraderie is going to go a long way. And sometimes it takes a lifetime to know a person. I'm so thankful that in 2 weeks' time, at least, you could acknowledge that I am a researcher and that I would like to study and I would like to take the things right from the classroom to the outside world, because my duty and responsibility as an academic goes beyond the classroom. I think I should bring this awareness factor. Why just limit it only to the legal parlance, but also bring it as much as I know. And I think that's the way how, as a global citizen, I can be giving my best to the world, best to the society. So finally, this is a wrapping up segment. I would now request फाइनल मैसेज फ्रॉम गुरुजी बिना आपकी बातों से कोई भी सेशन खत्म नहीं होगा, तो आपका जो बेस्ट ब्रिलियंट माइंड हम लोगों के लिए आप बताइए, और पार्कर जी को भी आपके बेस्ट विशेस चाहिए।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आप सभी का, थैंक यू वेरी मच ऑल ऑफ यू। और जो प्रोग्राम है वो इसीलिए रखा गया था कि ये कार्यक्रम में जिस तरीके की अभी बात हुई है, सभी तरह के फिल्मकारों को, नए फिल्मकारों को और यूथ को, विशेषकर यूथ को, जितने भी हमारे युवा हैं, उनको इस फिल्म फेस्टिवल के माध्यम से नई स्टोरी मिले। क्योंकि स्टोरी, घिसी पिटी स्टोरी और जो स्टोरियों में षड्यंत्र होने लगे, उनसे बचाने के लिए हमने इस कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत की थी। और आप सबके सहयोग से आज ये 40वां दिन और आज 105वां हमारा सत्र समाप्त हो रहा है, 5 सेशन। और इस सेशन में सबसे बड़ी बात है कि आज हम 108 सेशन पूरा कर जाएंगे, क्योंकि ये दूसरा भी तुरंत होना है इसके बाद में। और आज हम सबसे बड़ी खुशी हमारी इस बात की है कि सब लोग हमारे साथ हैं और सब ने अपने अपने हिस्से की भूमिका निभाई है। विकास जी ने पावर दी है, दीपक जी ने बराबर सहयोग दिया है, और आप सुमित्रा जी ने भी बराबर सहयोग दिया है। आप इस फिल्म फेस्टिवल के डायमंड हैं, हीरा है डायमंड ऑफ इस फिल्म फेस्टिवल, और आपके जैसे हीरो से ही ये कार्यक्रम आगे बढ़ा है। पार्कर जी का विशेष धन्यवाद। मिस्टर पार्कर, थैंक यू वेरी मच आपके जुड़ने के लिए। और वहां से जितने भी हमारे साथी विदेशी जुड़े हैं, उन सब का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। और विकास जी ने भी जोड़ा है, आपने भी जोड़ा है, जितने भी अभी तक कार्यक्रम हुए हैं, उन सब में हमने अपने हिस्से की भूमिका पूरी निभाई है। किसको अच्छा लगा किसको नहीं लगा वो अलग बात है। इस कार्यक्रम को दूर तक पहुंचाने के लिए शेयर करना बहुत जरूरी है, क्योंकि जो बातें हुई हैं वो यूथ के मतलब की है। सबके जितने भी लोग हैं हमारे भारतीय संस्कृति को जानने वाला और विश्व में शांति चाहने वाले, सबसे बड़ी बात है हमारा जो संकल्प रहा है वो विश्व शांति का रहा है। और मैं आश्चर्य होगा कि हमने जो इस कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत में एक बात कही थी विकास जी कि हम अपने महापुरुषों पर 75th जो हमारा स्वतंत्रता दिवस मनेगा 2022 में, उसमें जो हम 75 महापुरुषों पर स्वतंत्रता सेनानियों पर अपनी फिल्में बनाकर दिखाना चाहते हैं, सब लोग बनाएं और उसमें हम दिखाएं। यही बात मोदी जी ने एएमयू में अभी एक सप्ताह पहले एएमयू के स्टूडेंट से उन्होंने मांग की कि विद्यार्थियों को चाहिए कि अपने 75 महापुरुषों की फिल्में 75वें स्वतंत्रता दिवस पर एएमयू के छात्र बनाए, जबकि हम ये बात पिछले 1.5 महीने से लगातार कह रहे थे। तो खुशी इस बात की है, मैं ये नहीं कह रहा हूं कि मेरी बात चुराकर मोदी जी ने कही है, मैं ये कह रहा हूं कि जो हम सोच पा रहे हैं अपने फिल्म महोत्सव में, जो इस फिल्म फेस्टिवल के द्वारा जो हम सोच पा रहे हैं, वही एक प्रधानमंत्री हमारे देश के बहुत ही प्रतिभाशाली और बहुत ही यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री हमारे देश को मिले हैं, उनके मन में भी ये बात आई, ये बहुत अच्छी बात है, हम भी वैसा ही सोच पा रहे हैं। ये बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपका, और हम चाहेंगे कि छठे फिल्म महोत्सव की घोषणा आज शाम को हुई है, आप सब उसमें शामिल हों। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, नमस्कार, थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Before we wind up the session, I have a message to share with everybody out here. Our dear friend Parker from Canada, Professor Deepak Ji, Vikas Tomar from Canada. There is a message that I want to give to everybody. People can talk, big things, very high-fi things during big conferences on screen, but there comes a major factor: from where would I get the finances, how would I manage all the modalities, who's going to spearhead this, how do I get this technology in. So what is my final message from this talk today on this platform, or on the 40th day, the winding up day of the 5th Global Nature Film Festival, is what Mahatma Gandhi once said. Mahatma Gandhi, the father of nation of India, said, you yourself have to be the change which you want to see in the world. And the Mahatma at the time did not have any money in his hand. Bigger industrialists like Jamnalal Bajaj, they just at one clarion call of Mahatma Gandhi, they left everything and they said, Bapu, you take all the wealth that I have, but what you have to do is you have to build the nation. So I truly believe that it is an idea which builds everything, finances and other modalities do follow. So this is such a welcoming gesture from Vikas Tomar and Mr. Parker and Guruji and Professor Deepak. So let us build this friendship beyond borders. And also, like Guruji has already said, that the 6th Global Film Festival will be declared soon, and that all of us will be a part of it. I'm so humbled and privileged. So with that, I think let's wind up this segment. Thank you all the panelists for being here on the 40th day, 105th session. It's a pleasure hosting all of you. Wishing you all good luck in the coming new year. Also, the Yuletide times have crossed, but yes, I would pray to God that God would give you enough wealth, happiness, success, and so much time for your loved ones, that you all lead a very successful and a life fulfilling all the potentials that you have. See you all, everybody. Bye-bye. Stay happy, take care, and stay happy. This is Sumitra winding up. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Sumitra ji. Bye, Parker.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Bye, Parker. All the best. Bye, Professor Deepak.
Thank you very much, all of you.
Bye.
Studio.